getting up and going, huh?
Yeah, I think it's okay.
It shouldn't really matter that much, anyways, right? I mean, it's not like anything happened this week.
No, it's been a slow week.
It's not really a lot to talk about, is there?
No, slow week. Not much going on.
Yeah,
Bad shadows going on here.
busy weekend though. I got to listen to Mike Panozzo give a speech. That was kind of fun.
How'd I hold up? All right.
Yeah, it was good. I actually quite enjoyed your speech.
Thank you.
It was entertaining. It was funny. You'd never know that you actually do quite good at public speaking. I'm proud of you.
I'm not. I don't know if I do good at it. I don't. You know, it scares the hell out of me, and I'm always nervous as hell. But it's once you get up there and you start rolling, it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, you had a good audience. I mean, they laughed at your jokes.
Yeah, that's key. Well, it helps when they're Wisconsin people. They'll laugh at anything.
Wait.
See how that works?
I had to play along with it, you know.
Yeah, you did a great job.
It's a good thing you didn't open with that Bears joke earlier on. You probably would have lost the crowd right away. You at least saved it for the end. That was smart.
That's right. Close strong.
Yeah.
So what's going on, guys?
Chris,
what do you want to talk about first, Chris? Fedor or WPA?
Oh, I don't know. Which does one naturally follow the other? I don't know. Let's go with Fedor.
Okay. Pretty wild announcement, huh?
Yeah, it's wild, completely unexpected. Although we all did talk about it maybe 3 or 4 months ago. I think just randomly we spoke about it for a few minutes. But yeah, what does everyone think?
You know, it's all over the board, really. I mean, you know,
well, I think it's got to naturally start with. I mean, it's Fedor's post, right? I mean, basically, in so many words, he said the U.S. has always been like a second home to him, and everybody has accepted him as one of their own for this entire time. So it felt natural to him, as like a home away from home, maybe becoming the home.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what I read when I read his post about it, and he said, of course, he's going to give more updates coming soon when has a little bit more time from his YouTube page. But I think we got to start right there, right, with the idea that this felt right to him.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, you know, he's. I don't think this is one of those situations where Matchroom said to him, you know, we need to make USA stronger. Would one of you guys play for USA? I think it was more a matter of, you know, this is the place he's adopting as his own, you know, and was that going to be good enough? I mean, look at it. He was a lock to make Team Europe, and with him on Team Europe, they were close to a lock to make 40,000, right? So now he's rolling the dice on 20. So it's got to be sincere.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I love that he's taken to the U.S. this much, and that he's got permanent residency, and that he plans on getting citizenship and all that stuff. So, you know, did Matchroom twist a little bit to rationalize doing it this quickly? Yeah, for sure.
God damn it, Darren! You already are coming at it. We got to wait a little while and talk about Fedor before we jump into that. Darren, just go straight for it. Oh, by the way, get yourself a Dynamite Billiard sweatshirt. You know, these things are amazing. Darren, I wore this just because I knew you were going to be our first comment.
No, there you go. Look at that, Darren Appleton. Yeah. No, so
DynamiteBilliards.com, I think. Yep. Best sweatshirt you're going to be able to buy. All right, go ahead, Mike.
No, but you know, just saying. I think that it's sincere and realistic, and we'll.
Now we got Jason.
Yeah, tomorrow Jason's going to be allowed. He's going to be announced for Team Asia in the Reyes Cup.
Chris, what's your thoughts?
I think it's a good thing for the cup, but I think for what Darren's saying, I said the same thing earlier when we were all talking. Does that now mean that anybody with a green card or citizenship or whatever way it works, can anybody just now?
Well, I guess who's this opening up? I mean, Jason and Darren are joking about it, but like, the new criteria is you have to be a citizen, or you have to have a U.S. passport, or you have to have a permanent residence. So. Permanent residence. That's who off the top of my head? Jason, Torsten, Mika, Darren, Hoven Bustamante.
Gomez.
Roberto Gomez. I mean, that's just a few off the top of my head. I think John Mora. John Mora's a permanent resident, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think he lives. Last I knew, he was living in Vegas. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. You know, I mean, I don't know. They'll probably add number 4, which if you have a cousin living in the country, it works. But you know, this whole thing about the 5-year, he or she cannot change representation for 5 years. I'm interested in how that plays out in
starting now, of course.
Right, starting now. So, you know, what that means to me is that if Jason plays for Team Europe this year, he can't switch to Team USA for 5 years.
Well, I think Jason just said that he's going to be announced tomorrow. So I think Jason.
Well, he could, and as long as he made his commitment before October 1st, it shouldn't be any problem.
Whoa! Jason's making some news right there.
Sky, SVB, Fedor,
and him. Oh, and now he's
Tyler.
So he's saying no Billy or Tyler. So you're saying Darren's not worthy. You're saying Roberto Gomez, John Mora, Mika, Torsten. I mean, none of those guys are worthy. You got to go straight to Americans. Don't we have enough Americans on Team USA? Can't we start getting some other players in here? I don't know.
You can see straight away though how ridiculous things can get.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Matchroom are going to have to come out and say something and explain everything. Maybe just a video, just an explainer. But otherwise, they're going to be getting peppered left, right, and center. And yeah.
I mean, well, realistically, I mean, if they did this based off of who deserves to be there by who's the best players, based off the criteria, there's going to be 2 Americans. It's going to be Shane and Sky, and that's it. Because you're not going to take. I mean, Tyler's playing good right now, so don't get me wrong on that. But I mean, if all things are considered equal, you're not taking another American over Jason, Torsten, Mika, Roberto Gomez, John Mora. I mean, you're not going to take another American over them, right?
It would be difficult to do that just with that selection of names. You know,
and I'd even Darren Appleton. I'd even mention him there. I mean, you're talking about a Team USA consisting of 3 Europeans.
Yeah.
Right.
They need to explain it quickly, I think. I don't know whether they will. But it's just going to get out of control straight away. I don't know if any of the European players are pissed off about it. I don't know whether Jay or anyone will say anything, even if they were, or whether they say anything here. But there might be some of them that are a bit pissed off about it. There'll be some players that are elated because there's some guys that have been on the fringe of Team Europe for years. And Fedor in the mix just made it way harder. So for some of those,
it opens up the number 3 automatic bid wide open right now, right?
Yeah.
With David moving up to number 2, this makes the number 3, spot pretty available. Anybody makes a deep run in Vietnam, it's there's a lot of guys over there. Mario, Max, Jason, Jason. Oh, is he playing in Vietnam?
Who's that?
Jason.
In the one starting tomorrow. He is,
yeah. So a lot up there.
Yeah, I mean, Darren just said the green card holders.
Yeah, it's still the same list, I think.
Jay, Mika, Holman, Roberto Gomez, Mora. I don't know if Mora actually has a green card or not. I guess I don't. But he's a permanent resident. He's been living in the U.S. full time for. I mean, Alex. I mean, even Peggy Lyon. I mean, is Alex Peggy Lyon a permanent resident? No. I feel like he is.
I don't think so, because he's been applying for something in the U.S.
But that doesn't make you not a permanent resident, right? I mean, you could still be a permanent resident trying to.
You have to apply for the residency. Just because you're living here doesn't mean you're a permanent residency.
Oh well. I don't know U.S. Immigration. I was lucky enough to be born here, I guess. But I don't know. But I mean, if you go off permanent residency, then the U.S. will never have, or I shouldn't say never. They're not going to have a majority going forward based off of this rules. Because I don't think the only person that you could make an argument to take over any of the players that Darren just listed there is Tyler. I mean, Shane Wolford was a really nice pick when Fedor and Mika.
So
and
yeah, but what you're saying
option,
is this: we're not just talking about Mosconi Cup here, right? So
World Cup of Pool.
If Darren wants, if they want to switch their allegiance right now, I don't know when the last time was. I mean, again, it goes to this determining which nation to represent. You can't change representation for 5 years.
Well, as respectfully as I could possibly say this, is Darren and Mika and Torsten going to be making a team on Europe anytime soon? Probably.
But did they play in the World Championship as Europeans?
What does it matter?
Yeah, because if you determined which nation you represented, then you got to wait 5 years. Yeah, you're right.
Starting right now. That's I mean, are any of those players going to be making Team Europe anytime soon? Probably not. I can't imagine. Is Torsten Homan going to be playing for Team Germany coming up for the World Cup of Pool? Probably not. Maybe he thinks $20,000 a year lock every year is worth it. Is Mika going to be making? I mean, there's a lot of really good Finnish players that are coming out right now. Does Mika have to make the World Cup of Pool team every year? I mean, maybe it makes more sense to guarantee yourself a $20,000 paycheck with a shot at 40 every year than it is to play in the World Cup of Pool.
Yeah,
that's a pretty tough question for a lot of these players. But is John Moore? Would John Moore give up a chance to play for Team Canada for World Cup of Pool to play for $40,000 every year? I don't know. I mean, it's questions for them, not for us. But
they can put in their applications.
I don't see a reason why they wouldn't. And now we're really, I mean, I think the reason the Mosconi Cup was as powerful as it is almost, I mean, it's kind of for fun, but it's also not at the same time. The hatred that Europe has towards the patriotism of the U.S. I mean, it's almost like the Europeans are like, they want to like kind of rub our noses in the idea of us being overly patriotic towards our country, and we're playing an entire continent, and it's like this. It's almost like the for fun hatred that comes out of this. Well, all of that's thrown away if you end up having 3 players that aren't in the U.S. anymore, right?
Okay, I mean, I suppose. I mean, I don't know. They'd have to pass a Constitution test before they get past Billiards Digest. So, but here's the thing. So, beyond eligibility, what is your thought on the timing of it? The fact that he was listed as a European points getter until September 30th, and its effect on other players who chased points in Vietnam, who now are kind of looking at one less spot.
Yeah, I mean, you can only assume that Matchroom and Fedor spoke about this when he started his green card application, and he got it 2 weeks ago or something, right? So, I mean, realistically, what could they have done? Could they have taken them? Could they have enacted? What if he didn't get his green card? I mean, could they have left?
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I'm really curious about what the actual timeline was, anyways, because Billy Ussery talked about transparency, and it would have been nice to know all this stuff, and I agree with them 100%. Yeah. But you can't be transparent about it until everything is signed, sealed, and delivered, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So otherwise, you just open yourself for a different kind of can of worms. So, I don't know. I have no idea what that timeline was.
Which is kind of what Jason brings up right there in the comments with he's been on the European ranking the entire time. They just switch it. I mean, it doesn't.
I don't think they could switch it until they knew.
That's exactly that's what I'm saying.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the whole timeline thing that I have no idea. You don't think Fedor could have played for Team Europe this year? Oh, you mean because of Russian, and who knows whether that played any role in. His allowing him to get on Team USA, although I don't know.
We haven't gotten to the WPA part of this yet, but why does Matchroom give a crap about anything that the WPA would put on them for restrictions anyways at this point?
The Russian thing may not have been a WPA thing. It could have been Sky Sports telling them that a Russian's not going to represent Team Europe. It could have been the venue that they were, the country that they're playing in may have said, We don't allow Russian athletes to play as whatever the case is. So who knows? I don't know how much of that was involved or not, but it's a possibility. Although if it was Sky or the venue, what difference does it make whether he's representing the U.S. or Europe?
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking, right?
So
that's why like when you're saying like he might not have been able to play anyways. I mean, obviously he was able to play, or Matchroom wouldn't have put him on the rankings. And then if it's a WPA thing, then Matchroom clearly cares a lot about what WPA thinks. So why would they care to not put him on there anyways?
He's been playing under.
They had nothing to do with. It has nothing to do with WPA.
No.
Oh, I know.
Nothing to do with WPA.
No. Well, yeah, and if it wasn't Sky, if Sky Sports didn't think he was eligible, then why has he been on the rankings to begin with?
He's been playing under a neutral flag since he came back into the Matchroom events, hasn't he? So
right, so he's playing in other events, and who knows whether this event has a different ramification with somebody. Who the hell knows? I don't know. It's a good question to ask Matchroom. I don't know if they tell us. Replying to Darren Appleton, Josh is not playing in Vietnam. Yeah, which in itself is a whole different story.
Whether Fedor could have played for Europe and whether he should have are two different things. So my view would have been that he shouldn't have, or there shouldn't be any Russian athletes playing in anything at the moment until they have a new status of citizenship, which he now has. But probably shouldn't have been playing up until now or a couple of weeks ago. That's just my view, but that's for any Russian athletes in any sport, not just him. It's got nothing to do with him personally.
Right. Well, I mean, I was thinking, could it be Sky Sports? And then I realized, well, Sky Sports aired all of Wimbledon, and they had Medvedev and woman, the gorilla woman, ranked number 1. So it didn't seem to be an issue for them. So I don't know, but it's possible that played some role in it. It's also possible that Federer just generally said, "Listen, is there any way I can play for USA? Because I'd really like to."
I think when we get down to it, I think that'll be what it genuinely is. But the people you got to feel sorry for in the immediate term, the bad side's obviously for Billy and Tyler, isn't it? They're the two that are going to be.
Well, I mean, now you've got the 4 and 5 spot open, and I agree with what Greg Hoag's saying.
I agree with what Greg
says. They should have announced Federer as the first wild card pick, and leave the guys chasing the points. But you can essentially do the exact same thing by saying by maybe not writing it in stone, but saying, we're going to take the number 4 guy.
Well, yeah. Why wouldn't Jeremy at this point? You want to talk about Jeremy like really stepping up and being a leader for Team USA? Jeremy has rights to pick whoever he wants for the wild card.
And he could say right now, whoever's number 4 gets in.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that JJ really wants to be a great leader for Team USA and really give some props to those players who have been chasing. Because I know that we had a little bit of a discussion in our private group, and Ray was a little upset with us. I was kind of hoping he'd be able to join for this because he's quite upset. As somebody who is one of the people chasing these Mosconi Cup points, he feels like he's. I don't want to speak for him, but he seems like he says it's just isn't fair for players like him, BJ, Billy, Tyler, players like that who I have been chasing all year, invested their time and effort and resources into getting those points, to basically be told none of that matters anymore. Shane, Sky, and Fedor are your 3 picks, and I guess the rest of you can pound sand. This is how it's going to be. No, maybe JJ's stepping up and says, "All right, I'm taking number 4, the very first wild card, based off of whoever's 4th on the list." That's a solid for everybody who is chasing it.
I think that would be a smart move for JJ to do, and then going forward next year, if Federer now is on the U.S. points list, then it's all moot. Then you just go top 3 again, and your wild cards for 4 and 5. So. To me, if 1, 2, and 3 are as much a lock going forward as we all kind of assume they are, then everybody's chasing wild cards from here anyway. So that in itself becomes a points list. It's not an automatic points list, but listen, if you want to get picked for 4 or 5 to play with those other 3 guys, you better be right around 4 or 5 in your points. You better get out there and play in all those events and show that you belong. And you can step up and play, you're chasing, you're putting in the effort, you're getting in the grease, all those terms. So it kind of, to me, almost serves the same purpose.
Yeah. I mean, and looking at Team Europe now, obviously this opens up some spots here, but where's Josh Filler on
that? Josh Filler on that is a really interesting subject right now, because we know that he played in Qatar and won. We know he played in China and won. And we know he just blew off Hanoi. So now with the WPA mandate coming down that you have to make a choice come March 1st, his choice becomes really interesting. And even in how it affects him this year. Now, I don't expect him to make any decision before March 1st, any public decision before March 1st. But, you know, if you're Matchroom, if you're Ralph Eckert, what kind of spot are you put in right now to try to find out where his allegiance is going forward before you make a pick for this year? I don't think that's out of line to take that approach. Chris?
I don't think it's out of line to take that approach, but whether, you know, if he goes looking for the truth from Josh on what his future plans are, whether he gets the truth out of him or not is like probably not. You know,
you're not, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I wouldn't tell anybody until I had to. Anyways.
No, but I mean, I don't think it's going to be so. You know, in this instance, in this conversation, it's Josh. But you know, going forward, will this decision by Matchroom will that entice a couple of or encourage a couple of the American players who have missed out to go WPA route next year? Because there's a few of them that are never going to get on the Mosconi Cup team now. They're never going to play World Cup.
Let's talk about that.
What events you want to play in?
It depends, but you know, some of those guys are sponsored by Predator as well. Predator, I hear that Predator and WPA aren't getting on particularly well at the moment, but they're going to need each other moving forwards. There's the Qataris are in the mix as well. So,
I mean, how many players does this truly affect? I mean, looking at the federations that we're talking about, I mean, if you have a federation that doesn't give you financial backing, so let's look at the ones that actually do. How many players is this really affecting? Obviously, it's going to be affecting the Netherlands, Germany, Poland, Taiwan.
I believe.
I don't know how many are actually getting financial backing and how many are just having their travels covered.
Well, but even if you don't get financial backing, you make the step away from WPA, you know, you can't play in the World 8-Ball Championship. You can't play in the World 10-Ball Championship. You can't play for your team in the World Games. You can't, if you're an Asian, you can't play in the SEA Games. If you know, so there's a lot that's involved in that. So from that standpoint, it's really interesting. You know, it's going to be interesting to see who picks what. You're gonna, like I said, I expect all the Polish players, maybe one or two, maybe like a Misko will say, you know, flip someone off and go play in Matchroom. But
Victor will. Victor's not good. Victor will for sure. Victor's not good with his federation, anyways. I don't know this, but I know that he's not good with his federation.
Well, then why did he pull out of Vietnam? The Polish Federation told him if they play in Vietnam, they're barred. He pulled out of Vietnam.
Sure, but
so did Wojciech. So you know they bailed, and he just posted that he's coming home now for a couple of days. Then he's playing in a Euro Tour and the World 8-Ball Championship.
Well, let's look at it this way, Mike. Even if you're right, then sure. But what I'm saying is, why wouldn't you pull out for Vietnam? If nothing else, you can play two more big events coming up, get a chance at the World Championship and 8-Ball, get a chance at a Euro Tour, and then break ties with them. I mean, if you're why wouldn't you take at least two more swings at it and then leave, right?
Take two more swings at what? What is a Euro Tour a swing at?
Well, you went to the 8-Ball Championships, the 8-Ball World Championships. Would you rather you ask any player in the world, would you rather win the Hanoi Open or would you rather win the World 8-Ball Championships? They're going to take the World 8-Ball Championships, right? Every single one of them. Why wouldn't you? So then bail out of the WPA events and go to Matchroom.
You could.
I mean, if that's your options, I mean, why wouldn't you take two more swings? I mean, the Euro Tour, whatever. I mean, yes, obviously, whatever to that. That's a nothing for.
Oh no, I expect Shane to play in the World 8-Ball Championship and the World 10-Ball if it finishes before March 1st of next year. And then he'll bail out, you know, because those are WPA events, and he's already said bye-bye WPA. But will he play in those since he can get away with it for the time being? Sure, why not? Take a swing. But he's also playing in Hanoi. He's not skipping tournaments to play in, in these WPA events. So
I'm just saying, don't be surprised if you see Victor stay bumped to his federation and decide
we'll
to
see.
go
It's
it
going to be
alone.
really interesting to see who sticks
I
and who doesn't. The one thing that I find really interesting is the only ones you've heard from are people who said, I'm Matchroom. It's the only ones you've heard from. You haven't heard
There's a
one
lot of them,
person
though.
say, I'm a WPA guy. Not one. You know that a lot of them have guns to their head, and they'll have to say that in the long run. But are they charging out there, waving a WPA flag and saying, rah, rah, WPA? Not a chance. None of them. And that tells you, if you're in the WPA, that tells you what the players think of you. That tells you that they may end up even going along with you, but it's not because they like you. It's because they have to. And it's a real shame that players have to do anything.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. But I guess going back, I don't know who are we really talking about. Jonas jumped in and said Finland has a federation. Jonas, does that financially back them, or does that just like cover costs for like travel and stuff like that? Does it actually pay you a salary? Because that's really, I think, what's ultimately going to come down to a lot of the players is whether or not they keep their federation backing, or whether they just decide, all right, Matchroom has better opportunities for me. Is whether or not they're actually getting a salary. And I know Neil.
I don't know about salary, but a lot of them will get bonuses for playing in the WPA, like the European Championships and winning a medal, playing the World Games and getting a medal, playing the SEA Games and getting a medal, things like that. So they'll get bonuses for that type of thing.
Yep. But is that worth giving up a Matchroom schedule for? If you
I don't know. It's
Jonas has travel expenses.
Yeah, Matchroom schedule. The traveling expenses are large at a Matchroom schedule.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
you got to be ready to bite that bullet and pull up your big boy pants and go play real pool.
And I think that there's some players who will weigh their options and decide travel expenses. I would rather pay my own travel expenses because I think I can still make more money. Will every player do that? Probably not. In fact, I don't think any of the Finnish players would be at that spot. But you're telling me right now that if Joshua Filler had to pay his own travel expenses, he wouldn't profit more by playing Matchroom? Absolutely. I mean, he would make more money by paying his own expenses, I'm sure.
I mean, that said, I'm betting that he's going WPA.
Oh, I'm not arguing because that is the financially safe thing to do, right? I'm not disagreeing with that. I think he probably will too. What I'm really interested to see going forward is how many companies will actually start tying themselves and their sponsorship based on, like, if Josh decided to go Matchroom, would Predator then pull out from sponsoring him? Because he's getting a salary from Predator. That Matchroom and Predator are not good by any stretch of the imagination. Do you think that any of these player sponsorships are going to be predicated off of which side they choose?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's just a given for the Predator players. Certainly the ones that are salaried, decent salaries. Josh, people like that. But I would think that between Predator and WPA,
Go ahead, Chris.
Between Predator, the WPA, and the people in Qatar, I think between them, some players are going to the players that go across to the WPA. Some of those guys are just going to be on a salary to start with. I think some of them are going to be incentivized pretty heavily to go that way.
It'd be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what the WPA calendar looks like next year.
Yeah, but
I think there was 12 events on there last I checked.
Like they claimed that they put out, how much was it? 5 million's worth of prize.
About 5 million, yeah.
5 million they put out
in total prize fund.
I don't know, if you went across to the WPA and you won every men's tournament available, how much of that 5 million would be yours? Maybe 300 grand or something.
There's a number of events in there that are women's event. There's a hay ball event.
That's what I mean.
There's a black ball event, and there are things like that. So yeah, it's obviously, if you look apples to apples, it's pretty close between the Matchroom total and the WPA total.
I mean, what I think is interesting about the WPA schedule at this point is if you remove Predator, which I don't know this to be true, but I've heard that the Predator schedule is a little bit shaky. It doesn't have to be here in 5 years from now. If that were to falter through, that WPA schedule looks pathetic, to say the least.
Well,
right?
I mean, you look at schedule. I mean, it sounds like Qatar is buying in with their commitment by being such bullies, because the guy who runs the Asian Billiard Federation is from Qatar. So, but I mean, the Qatar Open, China Open, that's what they're hanging a big hat on this year. It's the first time they had either of those events in about 5 years.
Yep.
You know, do you know that those are events going to be here every year for the next 5-10 years? If you do, okay, that's something to hang your hat on. But if they haven't made that commitment, I'm not banking a lot on them.
No, but you can see we're in a pretty ridiculous situation now that we didn't think we'd necessarily be in 12 or 18 months ago. You can see that in 12 months' time, we might be in a PGA/live situation, something of the same ilk.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well,
wait
I
a
don't.
second here.
I don't.
Why is Jim Telfer not on this? Because he keeps like piping in, and he begs the question on some. Pretty sure some federations would be breaking their own employment laws if they support WPA. I need a little more than that. I mean, can you give us a little detail? Jump into chat for a couple minutes, Jimbo.
But I've heard the PGA and the live comparisons. This is nothing like that. I mean,
it can get to that situation pretty quickly. Something similar to you've got split. It can get to that easily.
Essentially, what happened with that is like the live has billions of dollars in oil money that they can buy their way.
Qatar.
Yeah, but they've done nothing to actually show any of that money.
Yes.
The live went and bought 25 of the 40 best golfers in the world, and then basically bought their way into the PGA.
Qatar put on one event that was better than most of the events that they've won the last 10 years, which were
live
the worst
basically
events.
Bought their way into the PGA. I mean, what is it's not like live came in with the money to upend the industry. Matchroom is not coming. Matchroom is the staple at this point. You can say whatever you want about the WPA. It's been around long enough. The WPA is offering up nothing new. Matchroom is not coming in with money. They're coming in with events. And tied to events is the money, right? Matchroom is actually up. Matchroom is the one that's actually doing the things here. WPA, if the WPA came and decided to spend $50 million on players around the world and said, all right, you're now a WPA player, we're going to pay you $500,000 a year. Sure, they can come to Matchroom and try to negotiate some sort of settlement. But
if they got promoters,
that happens.
Yeah. If they, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What were you saying, Nate?
The PGA and the live, it just doesn't do anything for me. It's not the same situation because
I agree, but
bought their way into the PGA.
What I was going to say is the WPA, they're not promoters, right? They promote the sport in general, but they're not event promoters. They link on with preventative owners, so they're not going to pay anybody anything. What the WPA is doing with this move, to me, is showing Matchroom that they have power at the federation level, okay, which they do, and so they're protecting that, and they're flexing that muscle. Now, what I will say about Matchroom and their events going forward that nobody has really talked about, we keep talking about the top players and the top tier and all this kind of stuff. A friend of mine brought this up yesterday to me. You look at events like the European Open in Germany, right? 256 players. Where's the bottom 128?
Broke.
No, it's all deadwood from Germany, right? You go to the Spanish Open, 256 players, bottom 128 Spanish players, deadwood. Okay, now you go into next year's tournament, those 128 players ain't playing because they're the ones who then play in that event, and they can't play in their local tournaments. They can't play in national tournaments. They can't play in club tournaments. They can't play in anything that the German Federation runs, right? Now you took 128 players out of the equation. That's power and strength where not a lot of people are looking.
And on top of it, you are removing a handful of pros that have to play for the federation too. You're removing a Joshua Filler on top of it.
Well, we saw it happen in Vietnam, and this hasn't even really kicked in yet fully. And I think Emily said that upwards of 70 players, Vietnamese players or Asian players there, pulled out of fear, not even direct bans, but just out of threat, right? So he had to replace those. So again, you get into some of these other tournaments where you're in Europe, especially if you're in Europe and in Asia, I guess, you're depending a lot on those local players to beef up that field, right? That may change a lot.
I never thought about that.
Yeah,
I never thought about, because I mean, I was just at the U.S. Open, and there is a lot of deadwood in there. There's a lot of dead weight. There's a lot of. With that being said, though, I mean, as somebody from the U.S., I wouldn't be worried in the slightest about.
U.S. doesn't like that. Ass.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't have to worry about it, right? I mean, I don't have any federations that.
Well, the interesting thing is going to be, and you said you're going to have Shane Tyree on at some point. Is how is the BCA going to handle American players? Because they're going to be by the vote, they're going to be obligated to tell Shane next year, you can't play in the next World Games. You can't play in the World 8-Ball Championship. You can't play in the World 10-Ball Championship. You can't play in the World Team. Now, someone like Shane probably doesn't care, but you've got enough American players who are going to play in all these events in the U.S. regardless, and Matchroom against regardless. So who are we going to be sending to these tournaments? Savannah Easton is going to represent the U.S. in the men's division in the World
last weekend. I got second in the Wisconsin Billiards Hall of Fame tournament. Can I go? Yeah, you're not wrong. Honestly, you're not wrong.
So, I mean, there's a lot to this that's going to work itself out in the next couple of months, and before March, there's going to be a lot of positioning, threats, lobbying, buyouts, whatever there's going to be. But there's going to be a lot of posturing in the next couple of months, which is, for us, it's going to be great. We're going to have a podcast every 6 hours.
Yeah. I guess the only true winners here are Joey Ryan, Melina Mike Panozzo, Nate, Chris, Jim. We have all the content we could ever possibly dream of.
That's right. If Jim could ever get time off his job.
Well,
working stiffs.
Jim thinks he's better than us. Jim doesn't want to hang out with us.
Yeah. So
I don't know. What do you think's going to happen, Mike? I mean, you've been around this industry for 21 years. How long? What do you actually think's going to happen?
21 years.
I'm trying to be nice to you.
Please.
I got it half right.
21 years old. I've been in the industry for 43.
Got it half right.
What do I think is going to happen? It's a real wild, it's a real wild card. I would, in the perfect world, Matchroom and the WPA would get back to the same table, and Matchroom would say, listen, what do we need to get your stamp on these, just so you guys will go away and do your own stuff and let us do our stuff and not tell players where they can't and can't play. How do we work that out? That to me is the ideal situation. Can that happen? Doubtful, but there's solutions out there. They're both penalizing themselves. They're both penalizing all the players. I mean, I don't know at what point they sit up there and say we're doing what's best for the sport. And I think the court of public opinion, to a certain extent, could force them to get in the same room.
Chris,
between the players and the fans, really kind of imposing their will and saying, this isn't your sport, Matchroom. It's not your sport, WPA. It's our sport. It's everybody's sport. Figure it out.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I see a couple of people talking about a players union. I don't understand what a players union.
No, players union is the dumbest. It's
not going to. What does it do? I mean, if Matchroom and the WPA have more leverage, I don't care if every single player banded together. It isn't going to change what either side is going to do ultimately. Because
I think you're wrong there. I think it sure could, but I think a players union is way premature, because you need to have the actual structure in place for what this tour is going to be before the players have something to unionize for. Okay. Who are they talking to?
Well, I guess what I was going to say is like, even if every single player does band together, I mean, they're only going to be choosing the side that's going to win anyways, right? Because there's enough players that are all going to get on one side of it regardless.
Well, they will determine which side wins.
Well,
That's the strength of the players.
Yes,
they're not going to
that's what I was
go
going
with
to
whatever they determine which sides win.
There aren't enough players in this game with enough profiles that can actually move the needle to where you can split them up. So whatever side gets the most players, it's going to be just the same as a players' union to begin with. There's not going to be much of a difference to it by the time that if you take Sky and Shane and Fedor and Jason and Darren and Koping Chung and Koping, all these, and you put them on one side of it, or even if you just split them up and have one more over here, whatever side gets the most players is going to be the one that wins. There's just not enough to go around. It's not like golf where you could have two independent, a live and a PGA Tour that can actually coexist for a certain amount of time until the PGA decided they wanted to just cave. But I don't think that whatever side the players go to already is going to be the same as a players union. I don't see why the players union is effective for getting what they're going to be getting anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess.
I don't know. Anyways, Chris, I don't know, Chris, what do you think on this?
I think Matchroom are just going to forge ahead and do what they want to do anyway, and it doesn't, to a certain degree, matter what players they take with them. The players that are going to be the best known, most famous, well-recognised players in pool are the ones that Matchroom are going to put on Sky Sports and DAZN and all the other networks around the world. They're the guys that are creating the content and selling it. They have Matchroom already work in a sport that is massively devised in boxing. You know, it's massively devised, fractured. Matchroom won't have any issue if 30 of the top 100 players go to the WPA. It literally won't matter to them. They're going to be selling the WPA and those guys. They're not going to get a tournament on TV, are they? That's going to compete with Matchroom's product. So why would they give a shit?
Not worldwide.
What does it matter to Matchroom? Doesn't matter at all.
No, it doesn't. But like I said before, I think Matchroom's got some hurdles it's going to have to jump. Getting into some of these countries, getting buy-in from the players, at the lower level, if they still want to continue to have 256 player events in different places in Europe or go into Asia. I mean, the Vietnam Open, the ACBS tried to pressure the venue and the promoter into shutting down the tournament, right? And then they went after the players. After that didn't work. So, Matchroom is going to come up against this time and time again, going into certain countries, especially it'd be really interesting to see what's going to happen next year in Fulda.
Well,
really
now that
see what happens next year in Spain.
Yeah.
Spain's
now that kind of
is
settled,
not anywhere near Germany's federation, but those federations in those countries, they wield a lot of power.
Yeah.
Now that I had a little bit to chew on that thought of them losing 128 of the dead weight, I guess the question I have for you, Mike, and this is probably your best suited to answer this: do we have to have 256? I mean, I'd assume that we have 256.
Well, no, I mean,
because we have the U.S. Open and everything kind of followed from that. But historically speaking, the U.S. Open.
What's the value of Deadwood, Nate?
Well, of course, the money, right? Entry
Money,
fees, of course.
It's all
I get,
money.
Yeah,
it's
I
all
get
money.
that. But at some point in time, like
what is a Matchroom event? 500.
Do you think that the U.S.
What is it?
250.
250.
Oh, entry fee.
Oh, entry. It depends. Some 750, some
like
are 250.
I think it's only 250 for most of these. It's only. I mean, and do you think the PGA Tour really cares about the whatever entry fee that the golfers have?
Different structure. They got two.
Yeah, say apples and oranges. We need.
Yeah, but that's what I'm getting at.
Promoters and pool need that money.
Yeah,
correct.
Every dollar.
For now, yes. At some point in time, maybe they won't. I mean, maybe they'll get to a point where they're, sound enough financially that they're able to have $1 million events where there's only.
Yeah. No, believe me, they would love to do that. No one would love to do that more than Matchroom. You condense the size of it, condense the size of the foot, make it more elite, make it better, make people have to earn their way into that 64 or 128 or whatever it's going to be. But for the time being, that extra $50,000, $60,000 that the bottom half of the field brings in, that's your first, first place plus.
Yeah.
So yeah, you need it.
But I mean, historically speaking, I mean, the world 9 ball has only been 128. the world or the Diamond Las Vegas Open that was always historically huge. That was only a 128. I mean, the U.S. Open really, to my knowledge, is the only event historically that was a 256.
What does it matter though?
But that's what I'm asking you, Mike. I don't know the answer to that question. I mean,
state the question again.
The U.S. Open historically has always been a 256, or at least for a very long time.
Yeah.
And so now, like that seems to be where Matchroom is getting this 256 for their other big open events. But if you look at the rest of the pool world, the pool calendar, a lot of the events are 128 or 64.
Yeah.
Does it do you think it has to be 256 going forward? Or,
No.
I mean,
just to me again, it's just a matter of how much you want, what you want your prize fund to be.
Sure.
If you want 128 players to donate $60,000 to your prize fund, you take it.
Yeah.
So 128. Events like the international.
There's $96,000 that comes in from the U.S. Open.
Yeah. So if it's 750,
if it's 750, yeah.
So you could just go to 128 and still pay the same percentage of the field and have less, still keep your top prizes pretty much where they're at. Which the U.S. The international now is 128, right? And they still have their $30,000-$40,000 top prize. The
Diamond Las Vegas Open has historically always been 128.
Yeah.
But the World 10 ball has always historically been 64, right? And the World 9 ball has always been 128. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thought, right?
It is.
In an ideal world, I think WPA picked a pretty good time to throw up this stink with Matchroom. Because I think if you give Matchroom another year to a year and a half of building the infrastructure to have a World 9 ball tour, I don't think that if this would have came up in a year and a half now, I can't think of any players outside of maybe the absolute best federations that would even think about not going Matchroom's way. At the direction Matchroom is going with the amount of events, the prize money at each, I can't imagine a situation where someone would look at their federation and be like, "I'm going to give up Matchroom for that."
Yeah.
But right now, there's plenty of people who might do that.
Right.
Every year that goes by, there's more and more and more that drop off that list that would stick with the WPA.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I see Jim posting here about prize money comes from major TV and sponsor deals, not registration fees. In a perfect world, yeah. And looking ahead, hopefully that's where we get. But, Matchroom's been knocking on those doors for a lot of years with some pretty good product. And they're finding out that TV deals and sponsorship deals are hard to come by.
Yeah, they can do it. They've been able to do it in other sports, but pool just isn't attracting non-industry sponsors yet. Apart from
and realistically, they throw more rain on the parade. But if you look at the sponsors that Matchroom does have in most of in snooker and in darts certainly, and in pool, it's betting sites.
Betfred,
okay.
Bet365.
So
and for the
trust
Boston
me,
a couple of years ago, they had like a Kazoom or something like that, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was part of it. But you're not gonna be able to rely on those people too many more years, because there's legislation going down in pretty much every country in the world that's going to start stopping those companies from advertising in events like this.
I think it's already been passed in the UK. It's already been passed.
So it's going to have to. They're going to have to find some replacements for that. So thankfully they've got their boxing deal, which, butters the bread for a good number of years to go. But, but they got their hands in a lot of different pots as it is. So,
yeah.
Yeah. The WPA has pool and that's it, right? I mean, like you said, boxing, snooker, darts to a lesser degree. I mean, they all butter the bread for Matchroom, like you said. Yeah. So we'll see how long that lasts. Emily and Barry, they seem to be 100% invested in it for the long haul. So, but they also haven't come across a ton of turmoil, right? Industry pushback. I mean, the U.S. has kind of pushed back on them quite a bit, I guess, along the time for a lot of different situations, some fair and some foul. But for the most part, Matchroom hasn't had a lot of pushback from the industry yet. This is really the first time.
Yeah.
Predator to a lesser degree, but that was really not industry. That was like sponsors. So,
anyways, lots going on. Lot will change. Lot will be added to the dialogue and the equation over the next 3-4 weeks. What are we? We're about eight weeks away from Moscone. So yeah, a lot to talk about. You got the picks coming up, wild card picks, followed by once the end of the year comes, then you start looking at next year, and then that WPA mandate becomes even more of a talking point. So
yeah, when is the? Do you know off the top of your head when the Las Vegas Open and the World 10 Ball are?
End of February.
They're supposed to run right into like March 2nd. So,
because it always finishes.
I wondered how much of that I wonder how much of that played into the March 1st date.
Yeah,
everything.
Because if it's a big event that you want a lot of participation in, you tell everybody you're not going to chop them at the knees until after the event's over.
Yeah, March 4th seems like a better date if you're not trying to cause controversy.
Well, I think March 2nd is the end, or March 3rd is the end of the whole CSI event. As far as, I don't think there's any dates. I haven't seen dates set for the World 10 Ball yet. I just saw dates set for
that's always at the tail end of the Las Vegas Open, right? I mean, there's always a 1 day gap, and then the World 10 Ball starts right after.
Yeah, but then after the World 10 Ball ends, there's usually still a day or two of CSI amateur events. So that's what ends on the 3rd.
I don't think that's right. I think it always ends. I think the pro event ends on Saturday usually, and then the amateur event always wraps up on a Sunday.
It could be. I don't know off the top of my head, but
I guess you said it wraps up. Let's say the 3rd, something like that.
Something like that. I think
March 3rd is a Sunday.
Okay.
So that makes sense. Yeah, it always wraps up on a Sunday. So the 1st is a Friday. The pro event is probably done on the Saturday. That's usually done on the Saturday.
Well, if you make the finals, you got to make a decision.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you make the final four.
I'd love to see it get down to the final 4 and all 4 guys go, see ya, gotta run.
Oh my God. Or the only person that's left is like some federation, like a pole or like Josh or something like that, and the other 3 just forfeit, and they end up getting a bye to the to the championship. Wow. Jason, you're out there in the chat. If you're in the final 4, if the 1st is the deadline and you're in the final 4 of the World 10 Ball Championships, are you going to finish out the tournament if that bars you from the rest of them?
No, the final 4 guys, they're just going to chop it and go. Chop and run.
A lot of taxes on those chops.
Chop and run.
I feel like that's actually like a real question. I mean, if the WPA decides to do that,
listen, if it's March 1st, March 2nd, March 3rd, they'll figure it out. This is not,
Oh, he's not going to play any of them. All right, well, there you go. I guess we have our answer. If he's not going to play any of the events, he sure as hell doesn't care about the pulling out.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Shane said he's not playing them as well, right? Shane said Matchroom only. Jay said Matchroom only.
Well, no, they're going to go with Matchroom, but from what I understand, Shane is playing the World 8 Ball, and Shane is playing the World 10 Ball.
Wow.
Because as long as you can get a big tournament like that in before the deadline, have at it. Take their money and run if you can.
Jim, I guess my point is if the WPA is going to ban you, I mean, I guess I don't know what Matchroom hasn't necessarily made as black and white as the WPA has, but I can't imagine a situation where the World 9 Ball Tour is going to allow WPA players, but the WPA is not going to allow World 9 Ball Tour players.
Oh, I think they will. I think they absolutely will.
You think so?
What's that?
He's saying, will Matchroom ban players who play in WPA events? They don't need to, number one, but if
they definitely don't need to. But
yeah, but either way, they're just going to welcome everybody with open arms. I'd assume. Why would they? There's no upside to that.
Jim, you're right. You can play in the finals and not get banned because it's an actual WPA event. So you really wouldn't be playing in a non-WPA event until after that event is over. So, yeah, I guess that was kind of obvious. All right.
Certainly not for this reason, but yeah, I don't know.
Nate, do you think you guys have got a chance to win a Mosconi Cup now?
I don't see why we wouldn't. We almost had a chance last year. If we didn't pick Earl as the 5th pick, I think we could have won last year.
Nah, I still think you're going to get lost.
At the end of day two,
It certainly makes it more competitive. It certainly makes more competitive when, you know, if you're 1, 2, 3 guys, are Shane, Sky, and Fedor, you're in the game. There's no doubt.
Yeah,
about it.
well, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you remove the singles match that everybody has to play. Shane, Sky, the way that you can do the schedule, Shane, Sky, or Fedor are going to be in every single match.
And Jay.
Yeah,
and Jay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jason, when they announce Jason tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got the American flag tattooed on his arm now.
Probably. I mean, there's no reason why they wouldn't be able to win. I mean, certainly make it competitive. I mean, there's no reason.
I still think you're going to get battered, but no.
Well, you're going to say that no matter what.
Not no matter what. I think you probably need to take 2 more Europeans, and then things might get interesting.
Well,
you got 4 according. You got 4 according to Jay, so they just need one more.
Yeah, we got Mika and Jay too.
Yeah. Evens.
You cannot tell me that you think the U.S. would get smashed with Fedor, Shane, Sky, and Tyler as a core 4. There's no freaking
anybody can get smashed.
Yeah,
I was at Mosconi Cups. They had good teams, and the other team won 12-1. So you know, it's races to 5. Things happen. It can go
alternate the break.
Darren, U.S. favorites now. Yeah, don't try that. Don't try to reverse psychology shit on us. Wow, U.S. is overconfident now.
I kind of hope that Jay does decide to come to the U.S. though, because the U.S. is so freaking bad at chance to begin with. At least we'd have something besides the USA. We could at least sing the Jason Shaw song.
You know what? I'm just not buying Jason Shaw and Team USA at all. I don't think he wants any part. When you get down to it, you don't want any part. Nobody loves.
Is there anybody that hates the USA more than Jason when it comes to
nobody. So please.
In fact, he is so freaking confident that he would never play for the U.S. He can joke about it on a podcast. Yeah, he loves America. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I don't know. What is there anything else we want to discuss? I know Mike's got a dish out of here, but Chris, is there anything else you want to talk about?
We're going to talk tomorrow anyway, aren't we? After Fedor puts his video out and after Jay announces himself for Team USA, we've really got a load of shit to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it seems like this is a multiple podcast kind of week. Seems right.
Yeah.
And I know at some point in time, Mike announced it earlier, kind of hinted at it. Shane Tyree is going to be coming onto the podcast at some point in time, hopefully this week, to talk about the WPA decision. So that'll be a fun one.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Lots going on.
In his defense, the BCA did not vote in step with the eventual ban.
Oh, wow.
Correct.
Okay.
So I will give the BCA credit. I will give Shane was the one who went to Atlantic City to try to have a last-second sit-down with Emily before he went out.
And he was there right away.
And he was there, and she said she really wasn't interested, which is her prerogative. But I give him all the credit in the world for taking swings on behalf of the U.S. So, we'll be interested to see what he says.
It will be very interesting to see what he says. So we will have another podcast at some point in time this week, probably 2, actually. So I guess if we're going to close it out there, I got to give a shout out to our sponsors that make the podcast possible. If you're checking us out, it's because of all of the great support that they do. So thank you to Jacoby Custom Cues, JacobyCustomCues.com. They are the best in the business. They support a ton. They do so much to give back to the industry. Billiards Digest, Mike Panozzo. Thank you, Mike. Get yourself a Billiards Digest subscription. Insight Performance Coaching, Salado, Digital Pool, Onboard Sportswear, and Horo Tips, as well as we will give a shout out to the Patreons that allow us to continue doing the show. So all of the Patreons that continue their support month after month after month. We will give a shout out to them once I get that up, because I exited out of everything because, well, Double Dave Q's, Dave Wiersma, we have Ed Ladawi, Cody Weddick, who was also in the chat. Thank you to all you guys that give the support back to the podcast to allow us to keep doing this. And with that, we will tune out for this week. Thank you to everybody who tuned in, and see you next week.
USA forever, Jason.
America.
Stars and stripes.